Good evening. This is Donna Blomquist, librarian at the LaSalle Public Library. Welcome to tonight's program, American Vacation, 12,000 Miles into the Wild West. Before we begin, just a few programming reminders. Mark your calendar for Wednesday, May 25th at 7 p.m. when authors Jessamine Chan and Emily Maloney discuss the systems of power that impact our lives, our families, and our finances through the lens of their acclaimed books, The School for Good Mothers and Cost of Living. And please join us if you can for our Starved Rock Bio Blitz event, part of the Pollinator Pathways Plant Your Patch program. This event will be on Saturday, May 28th from 8:30 a.m. until 10:30 a.m. Registration is required. The group is limited to 50 participants. And on Tuesday, June 7th at 6 p.m., the library will virtually host author, sports writer, and sports historian Marty Gitlin for a fascinating look back at the Chicago Cubs history. Also, the Cubs program marks the library's second anniversary of virtual programming. To mark the occasion, the library will offer a free drawing for a $25 Amazon gift card, randomly selected from individuals who register and attend the program. So please join us for that. More information on all of these programs is available on the library's website and in the library and on Facebook. Finally, for the first time, with the help of an audience member, the library will begin tonight to provide automatic transcription, closed captioning for all of our virtual programs. And now I will stop sharing our program screen and mute my microphone as I turn the Zoom program over to author and librarian Raluca Barbu and her presentation, American Vacation, 12,000 Miles into the Wild West, based on her book by the same name. As always, please post your questions in the chat. Raluca, welcome.
Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be here. I am Raluca Barbu, and I'm so excited to be here with you today to be able to talk about my book, American Vacation, 12,000 Miles into the Wild West. So thank you so much for having me here. This program is about my latest book, but until we talk about this, I will tell you a bit about myself, about my writing, and I will read to you a few pages from my favorite chapter and Donna's. And then I will play a presentation of some of the most amazing photos I've ever taken in this trip. And I really hope you will enjoy this. I am originally from Romania, and my daughter and I moved here 3 years ago with my husband, my second husband. I met him in early September in 2016 through a mutual friend. We were both recently divorced. At the time, he was working for an American company from Chicago that sent him to Romania for a few months to create a new offshore office. He was supposed to go back to the US in January of the next year. But as we got to know each other a little better, by mid-October, we were in love. By January of the next year, he did not go back. So his 4-month business trip turned into an indefinite stay in Romania. Soon we started traveling back and forth to the States. He wanted to share with me all the amazing places he had visited out west in the US. So about a year later, he began planning this ambitious trip for us to see his favorite places together. This is when the writer in me emerged from behind the middle-aged lovebird, and I said to myself, if this trip actually happens, then I will turn it into my next book. And it did. And this is why I'm here right now talking to you about my travel book. I am a published author of 4 books in Romania, and being a writer has defined me for more than 25 years. Writing is my way of showing my appreciation for life. It is how I say thank you and how I let the universe know that I notice how surprisingly generous it has been. The reason I'm here today is my 5th book and the first one in English. American Vacation, 12,000 Miles into the Wild West is a detailed encounter with my new adoptive country, a cultural, social, and geographical shock, a new chapter in my life, a gift, the trip of a lifetime, a travel book for those who love discovering the beauty hidden in nature. I could say it is above all a love story about two people who had just started their lives together. After we had returned from our travels, I started working on it. By the time I was done, we decided to move here. Therefore, I had to think about American readers and considered having it translated. It took me one pandemic for me to translate it, and two amazing friends, Danelle Waters and Christina Romer Goldstein, who proofread it and edited it. I'm so proud to know this book is out there in the world, especially since it has no precedent. There is no other Romanian author who wrote about the Great American West. All of their stories were about big metropolitan areas, universities, with the occasional mention of the Grand Canyon when crossing from one coast to the other. It is a story about a 45-day journey through the American West in the blazing summer. Em and I are the lead characters of this tale, and also the beneficiaries of the experiences we purposely or accidentally walked into across 19 states. The main protagonists are the people we met, the animals we encountered, and the landforms I hadn't even known existed, with exotic names like Canyon, Gulch, Tufa, Hoodoo, Arch, etc. We drove for 12,000 miles, hiked 170 miles through 35 national, state, and tribal parks, 7 types of natural landmarks, from 260 feet below sea level to 14,000 feet of altitude. Apart from this being the trip of my life, not even in my wildest dream have I ever imagined I would visit any parts of the US. It was also a learning experience. I was born and bred in Romania. Most of my experiences have occurred on Romanian soil in a Romanian style. Therefore, everything I witnessed somewhere else, I automatically compare to what it is familiar to me. What I learned is that there's nothing more American than the out west. That's what my husband keeps telling me. I learned that it can snow in the Sonoran Desert in the winter. I learned that not all the Pacific coast means hot sandy beaches, invigorating waves and swimsuits, but mostly wind, fog, and chilly weather. I was so surprised by the vastness of the space and the horizon, about how everything is oversized here, like the houses and the cars, the roads, the lakes, the Grand Canyon, the washing machine, or the marshmallow bags. Another thing that impressed me deeply was how friendly the fellow hikers were on the trails. They would say hello, or at least look and smile at us. Eye contact didn't seem to be difficult for them, but rather habitual. I was amazed to discover a certain family portrait throughout our trip, a sight I never seen in my home country. Parents with children, joined by a pair of grandparents, sometimes even 2. I appreciate a culture where old age is not kicked out the door, but rather included in an active way of life. Coming from a country with very few highways, maybe less than 100 miles in total, and I'm not joking, I find the North American infrastructure a road paradise, and the list goes on and on. So all I did is write about a distinct world, unlike the one I presumed it was, about people and the way they relate to one another, about places where nature gathered a dizzying amount of beauty and wilderness, about the care and respect the locals and tourists have for their heritage. I will read to you a few pages from the 17th day of our trip. So it is the morning of the 17th day. We have slept in cabin number 3 in canyons of Escalante RV Park, Utah, and we are about to hike the Peekaboo Canyon and Spooky Gorge. On the hiking websites, they describe Peekaboo Canyon and Spooky Gorge as the perfect choice for families with children, where they can enjoy a pleasant walk or play hide and seek. Therefore, my expectations for July 7, 2018 involve a fun trail into a childish yet unusual landscape. We have to drive 30 miles, which would normally take us 20 minutes, but the roads in Grand Stairs Escalante are not yet all paved. It takes us an hour and a half to check in at this improvised parking lot. And when I say improvised, I mean there is another car parked where the road we're coming from intersects with another road that looks like only off-road vehicles should use. We decide to keep it safe by letting it wait for us, parked in the middle of the desert. Then we walk the dirt road aligned with cacti, short juniper trees, and thistle shrubs. After a mile and a half, we reach the trailhead where this loud group of people of all ages is taking a photo and are chanting joyful and encouraging words. Once again, I'm certain that what is about to happen is just child's play. We leave the group behind and start a mild descent, hopping from one flat rock to the other towards a wide valley entirely uncovered, vulnerable under the morning sun. There aren't any trail signs along the way, just cairns left behind by other travelers. At the bottom of the natural stairs, we find the first sign guiding us to the Dry Fork Slot Canyon on a sandy path bordered by sandy miniature bushes. The area is highly populated with big glossy green lizards and other small mat plants. The trail that takes us to today's destination first goes through Dry Fork, a broad canyon with tall rock faces that abound in coolness. Soon after we leave it, the fun begins. Yet it is a different kind of fun than what I had in mind. We must approach the two canyons from a specific direction. Em explains to me, west to east, starting with Peekaboo and ending with Spooky Gorge. Yes, this is a video filmed right there. For reasons yet unknown to us, we follow the directions precisely and for a while walk along a tall crag. Then we reach the entrance to Peekaboo Slot Canyon, which isn't exactly accessible to kids, nor to me, to be honest. To enter the canyon, I have to climb a 10-foot tall, polished and slippery boulder with no evident stone holes. I am not the one to climb, and my bouldering skills are close to non-existent. Even if I had them, I would still not be able to climb this rock as it is overhung. This is the first Peekaboo I stumble upon today and fear that for the parents and the cheerful group coming behind us who will have to deal with it as well. Don't forget that I am with Em in this rocky paradise. And while I have a sip of water and scratch my head asking myself, how could today turn great after all? Em has already planned the following steps. This is what we do. I squat and you climb on my shoulders first. I sit up and lift you, and then you can climb the rock on your own much easier. I don't know why I even worried, really, even for a minute. I do exactly as I'm told. I climb on his shoulders, which I probably will mark with the shape of the soles of my shoes, as I don't exactly have the weight of a ballerina. He sits up and I pull myself on the rock, grabbing any stone bump I can find and slip into the canyon. Em throws me the backpack. And in about 2.5 moves, he's in next to me using a method I cannot reproduce, but which I applaud intensely, happy to be together in the canyon. Indeed, once we're in, Peekaboo is exactly what we feel like doing, as the walls are relatively tight and contorted, with all kinds of polished stone hideouts and hollows of different sizes and creative shapes. Now and then, Em has to push or pull me when the canyon gets too steep. In places, I just slide on my belly or my back or jump from reasonable heights, and mostly just have a lot of fun. The exit is not as spectacular because the canyon widens a bit, giving way to a sand trail that leads us out into the desert. Very close by is the entrance into the Spooky Gorge, which comes with its own set of challenges for me. This time it is an elongated slot through some overhung boulders, narrow at the top and wider toward the bottom. The waters of an unstoppable storm seem to have thrown these rocks on top of one another millions of years ago. I don't have the exact facts, but as I assess the situation, nothing is to my advantage. Let's say I can somehow squeeze through, but then I would have to jump 10 feet down to get inside. To M, things are simple as usual. While I complain quietly, he props his long stork legs against the opposing rocks, leaning on his hands, and then he leaps like a gymnast onto the sand below, landing safely on his feet. Then he tells me, this is what we do. Push your back to the right stone and your hands to the left one. Then slide down bit by bit until you reach my shoulders with your feet. Keep your balance with your palms against the opposing walls as I bend down. And when you think you're low enough, jump. I understand perfectly what Emmy's telling me, at least theoretically. It seems to be a simple tactic with a successful outcome. As I try it and follow the steps, I have the distinct feeling that I will break either my head or some of my limbs in the fall. Another couple shows up behind me, and their presence adds another layer of pressure on me, making me lose the bit of focus I have gathered so far. Smiling, I ask them to be patient because it will be a while until I climb down. They take a few steps back, giving me enough space. So I bravely approach the multiple obstacles, vertical displacement. I try again the way M suggests, but I'm too afraid. I lie on my belly and slide easily until my feet reach M's palms, but I don't dare detach myself from the cliff for fear I will break his arms. I try sliding on my back with my legs apart into an unfortunate split, leaning on my elbows, but this takes me nowhere. I turn on all sides, try another split, followed by a front flip and a cartwheel to the amusement of the couple. Then, tired of my fear and absurd poses, I just let go and slide on my back. M catches my feet in his palms, grabs my knees, then my thighs, and finally I jump as my heart gets stuck in my throat. Unlike M's elegant leap, I land on all fours, looking ridiculous and thanking gravity for not causing me lifelong damages. I can't tell for sure, but I think the couple applauded me, probably for climbing down this portion in less than 15 minutes, which took M less than a minute. Anyway, I'm here in the canyon, whole, unharmed, and thankful. M goes, see, piece of cake, you did great. I tried to contradict him, but realized it would be in vain, and besides, he is right. One way or another, I did manage to descend, mostly like Alice down the rabbit hole, but you know what? I'm proud of myself. And so I continued the hike through the suspiciously dark slot canyon, thinking to myself that the worst is now over. Behind us, the other two climbed down in maybe 3 minutes, but I will not let someone else's performance discourage me. The decor is similar to the first canyon, except the walls are arched, uneven, and grained. There is less light inside, and as we advance, I understand why it is called spooky. There is not enough room for fooling around here, no place to hide, sit, or bend. The path is wider than a swimmer's shoulders, and at some point, we can only move laterally. The walls are so close together that I have to stand with my feet in the first ballet position, the one with the heels held together and the toes pointed in opposite directions. Sometimes I have to bend forward or backward, following the shape of the space between the walls, and it gets spooky when my body has the exact dimension of that space. If my chest or hips were even a few inches bigger in girth, I would not be able to move ahead. Strong feelings of elation and adrenaline mix in my mind in effervescent cocktails that make me shout out of both delight to live this unique experience and terror that I might not be able to squeeze through. Or worse, to be stuck and have to bring people to blow up the mountain to remove me from here. It's not ideal for me to shout, really, maybe just in my mind, because if I would breathe in enough air for a scream, then the walls would for sure trap me in. For about 30 minutes, I lived in a foreign film, playing the character of a fearless heroine that descends into the depths of the earth, following her lover's example. I see Em advancing in front of me, constantly checking my progress. I'm so pumped that I could jump around, giggle, and hug Em to express my state of mind. But I have to take up as little space as possible, so I settle for blowing him a kiss. Somewhere toward the end of the canyon, we crossed paths with a couple that wasn't aware they had approached the trail backward. Luckily for them, the path has widened and we can pass them with little difficulty. I wish I were a tiny nimble lizard to sneak back into the canyon and see how the couple will pass the other couple coming behind us. They will certainly have to walk back to a wider area to let the others pass. But what happens if there are even more couples coming this way? Well, this is a funny perspective to a potentially crowded situation, unless this couple will make it to the other end of the Spooky Gorge. I seriously doubt they will be able to climb up from where we had to jump. But anyway, everybody has their challenges to face, so we mind our own business and head back to the car.
I love that chapter, Raluca, you know that.
I know. It was insane. I still can't believe that I actually did it. And I came back with all my limbs and my head intact. So I'm really thankful.
That's a wonderful part of the story. As you take us through your slides,
Yes.
I have some other questions that I'll save mine for the end, and I hope our audience will have something in the chat too. I will let you switch over to your slides now if you can.
To switch over. Okay.
Okay, we need you to bring up your PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if your slides had a picture of your famous rock encounter, because I didn't know if you were going to show that or not, because we did not see that if you were showing it.
This is the Spooky Gorge on the left. And no, this is the
We don't have them yet. We don't have your slides, no.
Oh.
I'll get there, just a minute.
Okay.
So you need to share your screen. I think it's probably a green button.
Yes.
Okay,
So this is
oh my.
Peekaboo Canyon on the left and Spooky Gorge on the right. Yeah. The last part of the chapter is about how when we finished the trail, we encountered, we met another couple who wanted to try to do the same hike as us, but they were a little heavier than us, and we didn't know how to explain to them that this is not gonna work out for them. It was very unusual for us, and it was very sensitive to tell somebody you're not going to be able to do it because of your size. But honestly, I could barely squeeze through some of those, contorted walls. It was something. And then
it wasn't just the dimension, it was also the shape where you really had to be the tiny size in a lot of angles.
Yes, exactly.
Could you possibly put your screen on full screen? Because we're still seeing your slides on the side.
Yes.
Let's see.
Yeah, but let me see how I can do just that slide.
Quite remarkable.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it.
Well, that's okay. We
It's
certainly
okay.
can see it this way. I
Yeah.
will let you carry on and you can get
Well,
yourself back to
I
your,
am done with my presentation and my pages. So if there are any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
well, let's see. I don't know if I should do my questions in conjunction with the slides because they may relate to each other. Why don't you go through your full screen slides and then I have some questions that I can either ask you while we're going through it, or I can ask you at the end.
Okay.
Raluca, those are sensational photographs, just remarkable. Whoever had the camera did a great job. Is your microphone on?
Yes.
There we go. I know that folks have been wanting to have you speak to those wonderful photographs. Is there a way we can break them off from the automatic play and we can ask questions about them?
Sure. I can just have them like this.
Well, for example,
Yes.
yeah, okay, we can do it that way. That's fine.
Yes. Okay.
They really are incredible photos. Because we may want to refer to them. For example, Spider Rock, which is early on in the adventure.
Yes. Yes.
Do you have a photo of that by chance?
Yes. This is Spider Rock.
All right. One of the just beautiful. One of the phrases that you used, and I didn't copy the whole thing down, but I wrote down climate, time, and patience made this place. That wasn't exactly it, but the climate, time, and patience were your words. And I
Yes.
felt that when I read that, I felt that you had like captured the very soul of the geology of the rocks. What made you write those words? It was just very stunning to me.
This is just the truth, this is what the weather, like the elements and time, they created all of this beauty. It just took a lot of patience. That's just what it is. It's not a metaphor in any way. It's just the reality, like the geology breaking down into 3 words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Were you taking notes like a nature journal while you were traveling?
Yes. So on my phone, I had an app, and every time we went, anywhere, I wrote down where we were going, what trail we were about to hike, how many miles. And after the trail, I would write down who we met, what they said, what animals we encountered, what happened, like, I don't know, special. So this is what I did the whole time Mihai was driving. I was writing down in my journal because I wanted this to be a book from the beginning. As I said at the beginning of the program, I said that if this trip was actually going to happen, I would definitely write about it, because as a writer, I cannot wait for my next subject to write about.
Of course.
Yeah.
Nearing the end of the book, actually it was on page 227, you compared Native American fishing villages in the Pacific Northwest to Romanian villages. Could you
Yes.
tell us more about that experience and how it then contrasted to the vastness of so much else in the American West?
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about the US before I came here in that trip. I knew a lot of things that were, popular, like movies and music videos, or, like common knowledge, historical or geographical, but I didn't know anything in particular. I knew about the Native Americans, and I understood what happened to them and how they were exiled to these places all over the States. But when I actually got to see the Navajo land, and then the northernmost part of the American states, I was very sad to discover that they actually live in a lot of poverty, and it's very arid, and there was just dirt and dust everywhere. There wasn't, like, I don't know, it's almost like they chose the less abundant places nature-wise to send them, so I felt a lot of grief for them. And the comparison to the Romanian countryside, yes. So you have to understand that in Romania, you have the big cities, the small cities, and the countryside. There's nothing else in between. And as it is here, you have a big city, and then you have the suburbs, and then you have the countryside. So the suburbs, they don't translate into a Romanian landscape in any way. So, yeah.
Well, following that thread about Native people being relocated and,
Yes.
by the United States government, in the chapters on Yellowstone, I think it was page 250, you talked about how it was not the American government, but the Native people 11,000 years ago who cared for that place. So could you tell us a little bit more about the many places you explored and the place relationships that you identified with Native peoples? Because I know you went a lot of different places and it encountered a lot of different groups.
Yes, so the first place we went through that had reservations, like Native Americans reservations, was Oklahoma. And that was a very dusty area and close to non-vegetation and very poor. And then we went through the Navajo Nation, which is a large area through Arizona and Utah. And it was like a big contrast between the like their villages where they lived and the landmarks they managed, and probably they only have employees that are Native Americans, like in Antelope Canyon or in Horseshoe Bend. And so I guess they have these places that they manage, and they probably earn money from the tourists. But then the way they live is like, it's not in America, like America that you see every day, civilized and with infrastructure and schools and playgrounds. And you would just go on for miles and miles and only see those huts with like straw roofs. And you would see there, I don't know if they're probably not called churches, but some worship places that were like a big cylinder made of concrete with a straw roof, and that was it. And you would drive the highway, and the whole entire area is gated, is fenced out with a wire fence. So even that gives the whole thing like a prison, like, I don't know, appearance. And then we went up to the Washington State, up to Cape Flattery, and we entered this village, but it was like so neat, and there were houses, like regular houses you would see in any other suburb, but not fancy, like but they were not huts anymore. They were regular houses. You would even see a boat in the driveway, and they were very clean. And I was making that comparison to the Romanian countryside, where you see, hens and chickens running around the yard, and clothes hung, to dry in the front yard, or I don't know, metal scraps, or just a lot of stuff in front of the house, where you don't see that here, or you didn't see that there. It was just a lawn in the front, and flowers and the windows, and it was really pretty, but very humble.
I imagine in the areas that had the fencing,
yes,
that must have been a contrast to the incredibly wide open landscapes that you were traversing.
Oh, and I forgot to say about this, because we were talking about Cañón de Chelly. This is a place, and also Yellowstone, they have there are still families of Native Americans that inhabit this place, like this Cañón de Chelly and in Yellowstone. So I thought that was such a favor. You know, like some of them were exiled to these really dry places, and these families, they got to stay in exactly the place that their ancestors used to live. So I guess some of them were luckier than others.
It looks like June is asking you a question about the wildlife. I know you had a few images at the end. Did you see any rattlesnakes while you were
No,
out?
but I heard them so many times. We were in Llano State Park in Texas, where I heard them for the first time, and I didn't know what it was. But then my husband told me that this is what a rattlesnake looks like. And we actually went to the visitor center there and bought a rattlesnake toy and brought it to my daughter. Yeah, so lucky us, we did not meet any, no.
Probably a good thing on both sides.
Yes, yes.
I did find your narrative about your experience waking up in the tent after not being able to sleep very well for fear of all the noises, and then
Yeah.
waking up with, sometimes I feel that way every morning, but I truly enjoyed that part. It was
In
very
Grand
funny,
Canyon.
and
Yes.
I think something that all of us who have occasionally spent the time in a tent might have felt, except
Yes.
when we were 8 years old.
Yeah.
You know, I was very moved, and maybe you'd want to talk to this point a little bit. The child in South Dakota who was taking the junior ranger oath.
Yes.
Can you
Wow.
talk to us a little bit about that? I was very, very moved with that.
Yeah, so what I witnessed in every visitor center, I saw these like areas in the building that were dedicated to the Boys and Girl Scouts, and there were these big sashes or like vests they would embellish with the like embroidery patches from every park. So, well, let's say I was a kid and I would visit Mount Rushmore. When you get there, you go to the visitor center and you say that I'm a Girl Scout and I want to do the program. So you receive these, it was like a booklet with I don't know how many pages, and for each page you would have to do an activity, to do a trail, to discover something, to like to sign, like to do like a check point to each of the ending of the trails. So you would actually have traveled to hike all the trails that they have there. And at the end of all the activity guides, like discover what plants we have here, or discover where are the 50 flags on the Avenue of Flags, or which state was the first to be declared American territory, or the last one, or activities like trivia. When you were done with everything, you would go back to the visitor center and say, I'm done with it. This is my booklet. They will look through and like, okay, you did it, it's done. And then they did like a ceremony of some sort. And you probably have the book there. And I think I wrote it word for word to, I don't know.
I don't think
like
I wrote the page number down.
Yeah, like I swear I visited and yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that page number written down, but it was,
yeah,
I can't get it quickly, but it was, I thought, quite moving, because I felt that it was such a, it was recognition that a younger
I found it,
generation, a new
Donna.
generation.
I can read it. It says,
Okay.
as a junior ranger, I promise to teach others about what I have learned today, explore other parks and historic sites, and help preserve and protect these places so future generations can enjoy them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Passing it on to another generation with such, with the same reverence that apparently you had for all the places that you visited.
Yes. I should be a Girl Scout for sure.
I think so. When we spoke earlier before we came on with our audience, you mentioned that you had some book club questions, and I was hoping that you could provide those to us. We'll post them as a resource when we post your recording tomorrow of this
Yes.
program. I think your book would make a great book club read. There's something for everybody in it, and much to discuss.
Yes, I will send the questions to you, or do you want them now?
No, you can just send them to my
Yeah,
email,
okay.
and we will
Yes.
do the post.
Yeah, of course.
So the whole thing was just remarkable. I thank you to our audience for attending. I hope that all of you have enjoyed the program. The library has a copy of Raluca's book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it from cover to cover, and I would recommend it as a gift for any armchair traveler, or perhaps the perfect Father's Day gift. In any case, you should read it. It is interesting, informative, but way more than a travel log. It is reflective, insightful, funny, lots of funny parts, charming, and a tribute to nature and the tourists and the park rangers who care about wild places. I hope that was your intent, Raluca, because that's what I took away from it.
Yeah.
And with
seems
that,
that
we'll turn it back over to you for closing comments.
Yes, Donna, I think you checked all the boxes, and I'm happy that I actually achieved everything I planned to do. I didn't want this to be like a travel guide, for sure. This is not why I write. I write to show my appreciation to life and to say that I am aware how lucky I am. And having traveled so much with my husband and having seen so many incredible places I didn't even knew existed. It has been the trip of my life, and this book is like an homage to this trip. So I wanted to say that this book was originally written in Romanian, but then I realized Romanian people will not take this kind of a trip. It's way too expensive for them. So it was a good thing for them to at least read about it. But then when we moved here and I started talking to people and making friends, I discovered that they have not seen, not even, I don't know, close to nothing, or not even half of what I've seen. And it was so clear to me that I should have it translated. And I'm so happy that it's out there in the world. And I'm so happy to hear people saying such wonderful words like you said to me, Donna. So thank you so much. And for our viewers, I hope you will be curious enough to read it, and you probably visited some of these places. Maybe you will read some chapters that were from a place that you visited, and it will feel familiar, or maybe you will read something else that you didn't notice when you were there. So thank you so much for having me, and have a wonderful Memorial Day long weekend.
Well, thank you, Raluca. Again, to our audience, please complete the short pop-up survey that will appear when we close the Zoom connection. As always, we value your input. And again, thank you, and we'll say good night. Good night.
Good night.